they said, "You're too old to help." And they said it right in front of me. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind where the sun falls softly through the blinds and dust hangs in the air like tiny memories. My daughter, Claire, was standing by the kitchen counter, hands on her hips, while her husband, Tom, fixed a toy truck for their little boy. I was just setting the table, quietly, carefully, like I'd done 1,000 times before. The plates were white, chipped at the edges, but I loved them. They'd been ours since Claire was a child. "I can still peel the potatoes," I said softly, half joking. But Claire didn't look up. Tom sighed. "She means well, honey," he said. And then he added, not cruelly but carelessly, the way people do when they think it doesn't matter. "But she's too old to help. Just let her rest." Too old to help. The words landed like a cold wind on my back. I stood there, holding a fork in midair, pretending I didn't hear. I smiled, because that's what you do when you're a mother who doesn't want to cause trouble. But inside, something folded. Something small and trembling inside me just sat down and went quiet. I could hear the sound of laughter, my grandson's tiny giggle, the clatter of dishes, the smell of roasted chicken. Everything was normal. Except me. I felt invisible. I felt like the walls could see me more than my own family could. I went to the sink, ran the water too long, just to have a reason to look away. The kitchen window faced the garden. My roses, pale pink, had started to wilt. I thought, maybe they're just tired, like me. Dinner went on, full of chatter about school projects and vacation plans. I sat there, nodding, smiling, swallowing the ache in my throat. Every time I opened my mouth to say something, someone spoke over me. And when I finally said, "I used to take Claire to the lake every spring," she said, "Mom, we've heard that story." Everyone laughed a little. Not cruelly. Just distractedly. But I wished I could disappear into my chair. When I went home that evening, the street lights were already on. The walk from the car to the door felt longer than usual. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lavender and something old, maybe loneliness. I sat down in my favorite chair, the one by the window where I can see the birch tree sway in the wind. I didn't cry. But I did whisper, maybe they're right. I looked at my hands, the skin thin, the veins showing like blue rivers. Hands that once cooked, cleaned, bandaged scraped knees, wrote letters, held babies, planted gardens. And now, too old to help. That night, I couldn't sleep. The clock ticked softly. I listened to it count every second I'd been alive, every second I'd given. I thought of all the times I'd been needed. The endless days of being mom. And how, somewhere between being needed and being loved, I'd become forgotten. The next morning, I made myself a cup of tea. Chamomile, the one that helps calm the heart. The steam rose in thin curls, carrying a warmth I didn't feel inside. Out the window, the neighbor's teenage boy was mowing the lawn. He waved. I waved back. A small, ordinary thing, but it felt like someone still saw me. I remembered something my mother used to say when I was little. Being useful isn't about what others allow you to do. It's about what your heart still wants to give. I repeated those words over and over, like a prayer. But that afternoon, Claire called. "Mom, I'm sorry about yesterday," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't want you to tire yourself out." "I'm fine," I said. "Really?" But when I hung up, I realized I wasn't fine. Not because of her words, but because I had believed them. I sat by the window until the light faded. And somewhere between the sound of the evening birds and the scent of the first rain, I decided something quietly. I may be old, but I'm not done. Not yet. Have you ever felt that way? Like you still have something inside you the world refuses to see? If you understand that feeling, tell me in the comments below. And if this story speaks to your heart so far, please like and subscribe, because sometimes, stories like these remind us we're never truly alone. The next morning, I opened the curtains a little earlier than usual. The sun was shy, peeking through the clouds. The garden glistened, small drops of dew on the roses, like tiny apologies from the world. For a moment, I just stood there, barefoot on the cold floor, breathing in the silence. It felt different. Not heavy anymore. Just empty, a space waiting to be filled. I made my tea, the same chamomile blend, and whispered. Maybe it's time I stop waiting to be useful, and start being useful again. So, I began. Quietly. There's a small community center a few blocks away. I used to take Claire there for piano lessons. I hadn't been there in years. That morning, I walked there, slowly, carefully, my cane tapping the pavement in rhythm with my heart. Inside, it smelled like coffee, paper, and faint laughter. A group of young volunteers were sorting donations. One of them looked up and smiled politely. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "Yes," I said softly, smiling back. "Actually, I think I can help you." They looked surprised. I told them I used to teach basic reading and writing to children when I was younger. The coordinator, a woman in her 30s with tired but kind eyes, said, "We actually need someone to help with our senior literacy class. Would you be interested?" My heart fluttered. I'd love to. That first day, I was nervous. My hands trembled as I wrote my name on the volunteer form. But as I sat beside an elderly man struggling to read a grocery label, something inside me lit up again. I guided his hand, helped him sound out the words slowly, BREAD. When he finally said it on his own, he smiled like a child who had just opened a door. That smile stayed with me all day. I came back the next week, and the week after that. The coordinator started calling me Miss Lydia, though that's not my real name. I didn't correct her. It made me feel new again. One afternoon, as I was helping a woman write her first ever letter to her granddaughter, I heard her whisper. "I didn't think I could do this." "Thank you." I smiled and said, "You could always do it. You just needed someone to remind you." And as those words left my mouth, I realized I was speaking to myself too. Days turned into weeks. I started to laugh again, that quiet, forgotten kind of laughter that comes from somewhere deep. The ache I'd been carrying began to fade, replaced by something lighter, a quiet pride. I didn't tell Claire about any of this. Not yet. But one afternoon, as I was leaving the center, I saw a young mother struggling with her stroller by the steps. I went over and lifted the front wheel to help. She gasped, "Oh no, please, let me, you don't have to." And I smiled, steady and sure. "I know I don't have to," I said. "But I can." She laughed, embarrassed, and said softly, "Thank you." That evening, back home, I looked at my hands again, the same hands I once thought were too old, too slow. But now I saw them differently. They were strong. Capable. Still mine. I realized that being too old wasn't about years. It was about letting someone else decide your worth. And I wasn't going to let that happen again. I began to make small changes. I fixed the loose hinge on my back door. I painted the old garden bench. I baked cookies for the class. And one day, the woman who ran the center asked if I'd share a few words at their volunteer event. My heart almost stopped. I'm not much of a speaker, I said. She smiled. Then just speak from the heart. That night, I stood in front of 30 people, most of them younger than my daughter. I looked at their faces, bright and expectant, and said, "People think getting older means you lose your purpose. But maybe it just means you finally understand what purpose really is." The room was quiet. Then someone started clapping. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt seen, not as someone's mother, or someone's burden, but as me. As I walked home under the streetlights, I felt taller somehow. The same woman, but with new light inside. Have you ever had a moment like that, when you remembered who you were before the world told you who you couldn't be? If you have, share your story in the comments. I'd love to read it. And if this part touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who might need a little reminder today. It was a Sunday afternoon, soft light, thin clouds, the kind that make everything look like a painting left out in the sun. I had just finished watering the plants when my phone rang. The name on the screen made my heart pause. Claire. I hesitated. For weeks, she hadn't called, just a few short texts, polite but distant. I wiped my hands on my apron and picked up. "Hi, sweetheart." There was a silence. Then a shaky breath. "Mom," she said, her voice breaking, "I'm so sorry." I stood still, one hand still resting on the watering can. She began to cry. "Mark lost his job. We've been fighting." I didn't know who else to call. Something inside me softened, that old, familiar instinct of holding, of mending. But this time I didn't rush to fill the silence. I just breathed, and said gently, "It's okay, Claire. I'm here." Her crying eased a little. "I know I told you to stop interfering," she whispered. "But I didn't mean to push you away. I just wanted to feel like I could handle things. Like an adult." "I understand," I said. "And maybe I needed to learn to let you." She sniffled. "Have you been okay?" I smiled, looking around my little living room, the vase of fresh lilies, the books neatly stacked, a photo of her as a child on the shelf. "Yes," I said softly. "I've been more than okay." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The quiet between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was warm. Like the pause between waves, calm but alive. Then I said, "Would you like to come by tomorrow? I made your favorite, lemon loaf." She laughed through her tears. "I'd love that." After the call, I sat on the porch. The light was changing, that golden hour when everything glows just a little more kindly. The air smelled of rain and rosemary. Somewhere down the street, a child was laughing. I thought about what she'd said, "You're too old to help." It used to echo like a wound. Now, it felt like an old photograph, still there, but softened at the edges. I realized helping isn't about proving anything. It's about being there, even when you're quiet. Even when the world doesn't notice. That night, I set the table for two. Just simple things, white plates, the lemon loaf cooling on the counter, a small candle flickering in the middle. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. Outside, the streetlights blinked on, one by one. The garden swayed gently in the evening breeze. And I thought, maybe dignity isn't something people give you. Maybe it's something you keep, even when they forget to see it. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and smiled. The house was quiet, but not lonely. They said, "You're too old to help." But they were wrong. I didn't need to prove it anymore, I just lived it. And that was enough. If this story touched your heart, Please don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe and turn on the bell. I post new ones every week on Lydia's True Stories.